We get to start right now with episode 135 of the Athletes Podcast featuring Aaron Kingsley Brown, two-time Olympic medalist, 10-time Canadian national champion. Just crazy statistics that this man has been able to put up. Thank you so much for coming on the show, man.
Hey, man, thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to also congratulate you on your recent 4x100 gold medal in Eugene, Oregon, where you won the World Championships on U.S. soil, taking down those Americans. Can you just maybe start off by explaining how good that feeling was?
Oh, man. It's been a long time coming. I've been in the relay program. I've been running on it since 2013. That was my first World Championship medal where we got bronze in Moscow. So it's kind of come full circle, man. Like 9 years later, getting that first gold is a sweet feeling. And it felt like the first medal that I ever got. And to do it on the U.S. soil, like hearing all the chatters, everybody saying that, we can't do it. A lot of people didn't even have us on the podium, which is crazy because of our track record. We're pretty consistent. We're always solid, always coming away with medals, but people for some reason still don't count us as a team to be reckoned with when they make their predictions going to the championships. And that's okay because, we fly under the radar and we just let our feet do the talking. But to win on U.S. soil and, stop that USA chant, that was pretty sweet. And there were a lot of Canadians in the crowd. So even though it was on U.S. soil, it still felt like a home championship for us because when we did our victory lap, we saw a lot of Maple Leafs in the crowd, and that was pretty special to celebrate with them.
That's amazing. And it was followed up by, I believe you participated in 8 events over the course of that weekend, which is just ridiculous on its own. How did that marathon feel?
Man, it's definitely a marathon. That's a good word to use. And it's you gotta stay locked in and find ways to like get your mind off it when you step off the track, because if you just stay locked in the whole time, you're gonna mentally fatigue and gas out. But I know what I signed up for. It was a big challenge, and to make both finals in the 1 and 2 was definitely an accomplishment. Definitely want more when I get there, and I'm going to reevaluate what I want to do next year's championship. See if I might want to specialize again and maybe just the 2, and then go back to the double for Paris 24. But we'll see how things shake out, how I finish the season, where I rank against everybody else, because I definitely want to be in a higher position than I finished. But to come away with 8 races and to finish with the last one being a gold and still being able to have enough legs to hold off, the US on first leg and set us up in a good position. It's definitely something I'm proud of.
Yeah, it's incredible. And to think that this is something that you were able to accomplish after, a couple weeks prior participating in the Canadian National Championships in Langley, bringing home gold there for the first time with your son watching. What was that moment like to have your son on the track with you there to bring in that W?
Man, I love it. My son's watched me run here in Florida at local meets, but those are small time. So like, it's not really memorable, but to have him at the actual championships in Canada, being a Canadian, my wife's Canadian, I have some family out west, so they were able to come. My grandma was there, my uncle, my aunts, my cousins were there. And then of course my wife and my son were there. So it was very special. I got to bring him on the podium for both races, and they're kind enough to give us a medal for my son too. So we were matching in that way. And he got his first medals, which is pretty cool. I didn't medal when I was 1 year old, so he's already beating his dad. But nah, man, anytime I get to run at a championship like this in front of my son, it's something that we're going to cherish and look back on in my career when he's older and be like, yeah, that was a pretty cool thing to be a part of.
Yeah, it's so surreal. So many of the athletes we've chatted with were at that event. I grew up, 20 minutes away, so Surrey, White Rock, British Columbia. So fortunate to be able to see that landscape and just an incredible facility at Langley. But I wanted to shine light on the fact that you're now a bit of a wily vet, as I've heard you refer to yourself as, even being the fact that you're, maybe the older one of that 4x100 crew. But you actually participated in the 2012 Olympic Games prior to even starting in that track relay group for participating for Canada. Can you explain what it was like attending the Olympics at 20 years old?
Honestly, it's still my favorite Olympics just because of the what's that word? Nostalgia.
Mm-hmm.
And the fresh feeling that you get when you go to your first champs, and you're wide-eyed and you're taking everything in. It's just a really special thing. Like, everybody was there that I always looked up to on TV. I got to see Bolt up and close for the first time. I got to see Johan Blake, and then guys like Justin Gatlin, and then of course the NBA guys. LeBron was there, Kobe was there, Carmelo was there, Dwayne Wade was there, Serena Williams was there, Michael Phelps was there, and it's just like being in the village with all these people, and it's like I'm one of you guys. I just felt like I was in a village full of like the most elite athletes in the world, and when I'm 20 years old, this being my first senior team, getting that exposure, it was like, man, this is I feel like I made it. So that was always a special moment for me. Definitely something that I look back on and smile, just because I was like, wow, I really did that at 20 years old, and that set me up well for the rest of my career. Because if at that young age I'm at at the highest level of the Olympics, the rest of the championships that I have to go, it's like, okay, I've already been there, and now I feel like I have that experience, and it's not like I'm intimidated anymore because I've already rubbed shoulders with the best that have ever done it. Literally, like Usain Bolt was the best ever, and I got to race him in the semi. So
Mhm.
after that point, it was like, all right, now let's go and try and establish myself. Like, let's stop being, wide-eyed and giving these people so much more respect that intimidates me. Let's go out there and see what I can do myself.
Yeah, you finished ninth. So to finish top 10, I'm imagining just was like an insane confidence booster. Then you head in, you're at USC, you end up recruiting Andre there as well. Tell me about that University of Southern California experience, because I know you've also posted on social media maybe some of the negatives that came from, attending school that come with, the extracurricular activities. So I'd love to dive into that because it's a topic I try and bring up here occasionally on the show.
Yeah, man. First of all, USC was the best decision that I made. I really just looked at schools because when I was a young high school kid, I didn't really know about the NCAA or any opportunities that I had. And the faster I ran, the more those opportunities came knocking on my door. And when I figured out about all the different schools, I wanted to go as far away from Toronto as possible. So I looked at the map. I'm like, okay, I'm up here. USC is down here. Let's go down there. But it was really between them and Florida State. Florida State was my dream school for a long time, but in the end, I chose USC because it was in LA. I had a really good academic program, and the track program was up and coming, and I wanted to turn it around. So there are some definite drawbacks to going to a school so far and being a Canadian and feeling like you're fish out of water. But I assimilated. There was really cool people that made me feel at home after a while, and I did party a little bit too much my freshman year, so wasted opportunities there. But I don't regret that at all because that was the most fun I had at college, and you kind of have to just get it out of your system and have that fun. But yeah, man, I recruited Andre when I was a senior, and he was looking to transfer over from junior college, and just told him, this is a great school. We had a new program, so we had Coach Carroll there now, and you saw what she did, winning championships and all that, turning the program into one of the top caliber programs in the nation. So it's definitely a great choice for him to come to the school. And he just carried the legacy, man. And now we're just, a whole bunch of Trojans that put us on the map.
Yeah, you and Andre, I believe, are the only two Canadians to have ever run sub 10 and 22nd 100 and 200 meter races. Just ridiculous stats from two Canadian studs. What was that? I want to touch on that freshman year point because it's something that I don't think athletes are honest and open about enough. The fact that, sometimes you do maybe make mistakes when you're younger, and maybe that isn't even a mistake. The way you talked about it, hey, it's part of something that you wanted to get out of your system. But those years that you spend in school can be pivotal, as per your transformation and whether you continue to develop, or there's people who, take the latter option and maybe don't necessarily develop as much. I think that was something that I'd love for you to maybe share specific changes that you would make or specific things that you did to continue to see success throughout school, because obviously you continued to perform at an incredibly elite level, but what learnings did you have over the course of those couple of years?
Man, a lot of lessons learned. Basically from my freshman year to my sophomore year, I said, all right, what type of legacy do you want to leave behind at your school? Because you only get 4 years at this. And I already raced my freshman year. I felt like I completely underachieved. And I wanted to leave school knowing that I was able to accomplish a lot and made, the best of my time at the school. And they invested a lot into me, bringing me down from Canada on full scholarship. So I didn't want them to feel like they got a dud. I wanted to live up to what they thought I could do. and meet my expectations. So I had to get more serious with my scheduling. I had to, lock down a routine day in and day out so that I was feeling like I was on top of my academics, got those out the way. So I wasn't all night studying and cramming in the last minute, trying to, make a passing grade. So I did that. I held myself down in practice and applied myself better. I started doing more things like recovery around the clock and, film sessions with the coaches and really understanding how I could get faster and deciding that I wanted to be faster was a commitment day in and day out. And so every day I was doing little things here and there to try and be better and partying less, spending less time with my social life, more time with my academics, more time with my athletics, being a student athlete in every sense of the word and making sure that I'm maximizing, my opportunities. And once you do that and people see that you're trying, a lot of people will help you along the way and you don't have to go at it alone. When people see the effort, they're going to want to be incentivized to try and help you out. So that's exactly what happened. I had really strong people in my corner, academic advisors, professors were working with me. My coaches were working with me. I had a really good teammate base that year. And it just really slowly started to turn around. And, I started dropping my times, getting more confidence. And the more confidence I got, the more I wanted to apply myself. And it kind of just snowballed each year until I got to my senior year. I was pretty much like a completely new athlete compared to when I first came in my freshman year. I came in my freshman year, wanted to go to every party. I was partying 3-4 times a week. And then senior year, I barely went out at all. So it was a complete mind shift set switch. Sorry. From freshman year to senior year. And that's just the journey. That's the maturation process. Because I came in at 18 years old and I left a 22-year-old, so you're going to have to mature at some point and grow up and figure out what you want to do. And once I got to junior year, I figured, it's a real possibility for me to go pro after this. So I wanted to make sure I gave myself the best opportunity to do that. And that was by applying myself and, doing well at the NCAAs and making a name for myself.
I've heard growing up that you were just a stud in every sport, whether it was football, basketball, everything that separated you was your speed. When you talk about going pro for running, was there ever the desire to go pro in other sports?
Of course, I grew up wanting to be a basketball player, but I quickly saw that, if I'm going to be 6'1", peeking out, that's tall for the average man, but in basketball terms, that's not very tall. So I'm going to have to be like a point guard with insane skills. And I'm like, okay, that's not really looking like the best option for me to bet the house on. So I dropped that my senior year in high school because the tournaments were taking away too much from my track. So then it was down to track and football. And I thought I would walk on when I went to USC. I actually had a football scholarship to the University of Tennessee and Florida State. They would have let me play football there and I could be a 2-sport athlete. But I ended up going to USC and they didn't offer me a scholarship because they were going through sanctions with the Reggie Bush scandal. So they lost a whole bunch of scholarships and they said I could walk on. But once I got there and I saw how big the people were, I'm like, oh my God, I have a chance to do this. So I didn't want to give up my track scholarship to try and walk onto the football team. I just said, all right, let me just stick with track because I know that's my bread and butter.
Yeah, I don't have 350-pound linemen running at me.
I couldn't believe how big they were. Coming from Canada, it was insane. And then I saw all the 5-star recruits that USC had in their recruiting class, and I'm like, okay, I'm literally going to get some of the best guys in the entire nation. I'm good at football, but I don't know if I'm that good. I've only played in Canada, so.
That's a tough team to try and walk onto. Any other changes that you saw, going from Canada down to USC, big changes? I know toilets, they call those washrooms, or they don't call them washrooms, they call it bathrooms. Yeah. Any other big changes that you had to make almost culturally?
I mean, it's all just really culture. When I mean culture, I mean movies, sayings, expressions, fashion, just small things that it's pretty similar to Toronto because Toronto's a pretty multicultural city. But you definitely stick out a little bit, coming from Toronto, fresh from Toronto down to the States. But by my senior year, you couldn't tell me apart from any of the other people in Cali because, I definitely assimilated to my friends and they took me on as one of their own. But when I first came, it was an adjustment. Like some of the expressions and slang words that I was saying, they didn't really understand. So I had to stop saying them and kind of start speaking their lingo. But yeah, it wasn't too tough of a challenge.
I once tailgated at a Trojan football game, and it was a very good time right before I boarded a flight back to Toronto. So that was my claim to fame at USC. But the for you having the adjustment coming from Toronto to warmer climate was probably amazing to be able to train year round, have that opportunity, probably super close to Nike HQ. So I'm sure you're getting some nice, gear get ups. Like, any other, changes that you would have made to your university experience now having gone through it that you would give to that high school kid heading into uni?
Uh, any other changes? I mean, honestly, I always just think apply yourself from day one. Like wasting that freshman year, although I said I don't regret it, and I don't because I had so much fun that year. I still look back and be like, man, what could have been if I hit it like hit the ground running, so there's like USC freshman records, and like I would have set myself up for the rest of the 3 years better if I just, took track more seriously and applied myself better and really took the opportunity to figure myself up quicker. But other than that, man, like I don't really see anything that would change. I by my senior year, I was on top of my academics. I was, the captain of the track team. So I was, the example, the leader for the rest of the squad. And yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's anything else.
I think you've become a leader for the squad. I don't know if that was something that you had prior to your university experience, but Nate Reach, who was episode 130 of the Athletes podcast, gave you a pretty big compliment and said that he was most impressed by the way you carry yourself at events with other people. So I wanted to share that with you and also give you an opportunity to maybe share where you learned that from, whether it was family, whether it was athletes you looked up to, parents growing up, anything that, gave you that insight or kind of allowed you to be composed in that fashion.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Nate. He's a great guy, great athlete, world champ, or sorry, Olympic champ, Paralympic champ, and I appreciate the compliment. But honestly, I would attribute it to my experiences and just like being a sponge with the people around me. I've had great leaders around me and saw how they carried themselves and what made them successful, and I just listened to the things that they told me. So I think anytime you're looking to be successful and be in a position where you want to go, you just look at the people who are already there and learn so much from them. If you just, humble yourself, tell yourself that you haven't made it, you're not, the greatest gift, God's gift to the earth, like understand that there's a lot to learn from people and, humble yourself, sit back and listen and take heed of what people say, because people give out advice all the time for free. It's just who's going to take it and who's going to apply it. Some people hear it but not actually go out and do it and execute on it. And that's the only difference, is just I take advantage of the things that people tell me and I put it into play. That's the only difference. So, I've had great mentors. Like I said, my family, of course, my parents raised me well up in Canada. I had great coaches who, molded me into the athlete I am today. So I give them all the praise. Obviously my wife helps keep me grounded. My closest friends are always keeping me grounded, and yeah, just the people I've rubbed shoulders with, man. I've had great teammates over the years.
It's a testament to who you've become and who you continue to be, I'm sure. I don't know, is coaching on the horizon for you in the future? Is that something that you consider when you're mid-career?
Right, rise of now, no. Unless it's for my son, if he
Yeah,
does a
yeah.
sport, then I'll do like, T-ball, be that coach, or soccer or something. But right now, no. But I never close the door on anything. You never know what the future holds, and what I want to do when I'm done track changes like the wind. So, or changes with the seasons, whatever the expression is. Um, but yeah, as of right now, I don't think I have the the mental patience to deal with it, because it's not just being a coach, it's also the psychological part that you have to deal with. A lot of egos on a track team, and the higher up the levels you go, the higher the egos. So
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
I look at my teammates and sometimes I'm like, damn, coach, you have your work cut out for you, because this is this is a handful.
It brings up a really good point. I'd love for you to maybe break down what it's like having all of these different personalities on one team. I think even like a prime example, you come in, you're kind of the face of Canadian sprinting, a decade ago. You're heading down to USC, you're representing Canada in the Olympic Games. A couple of years later, you bring in your boy Andre, and then he starts showing you up at the occasional event. Like, what's going on in your head? Ego's obviously probably playing a factor. On one hand, you're competing against this guy. On the other hand, he's on your team, both as a Trojan and as a Canadian. Like, that's got to be a unique dynamic that you two have battled with.
Yeah, and initially it's obviously tough because you're a competitor and you want to be at the top, but I think it's unique in our situation because we're actually friends, and a lot of the times people will fake friendships or like just play it up for the media and be like, yeah, we're cool, whatever, but and in reality they're actually not. But I actually genuinely have a friendship with Andre, so that's just developed over the years, and I look at him like a little brother. And honestly, I look at all my relay guys like brothers, and it's
Yeah.
just like we're homies kicking it. And when it comes to Canadian trials, or like if we're lining up against each other, of course we want to be the best, and that's the same thing with brothers. Like you want to beat the heck out of your brother, like you want to be number one. And who has a fiercer rivalry than brothers? But at the end of the day, you still have love for each other, and it's all love at the end of the championship, because that's when we come together as a team and come towards a common goal. And if you watch the 4x1 in Eugene, I celebrated the hardest with Andre, because
Mm-hmm.
I knew like me and him have been going at it for years, and vying for that title, being fastest man in Canada and all that stuff. And, in some ways we clash, but at the end of the day, we both want the best for each other. So when we get to come together and share that moment for Team Canada, it's always special. And that's just been something that's been going over the years.
Well, and you guys have done, yeah, a plethora of years under your belt training as a team, working together to refine your craft and show up on U.S. soil here this year and dominate. And I know that one of the things that you say or have quoted in the past is actually learning to hate losing more than you love winning. And I think that probably showed there more than anything. It was like you were so tired of that feeling, or just wanted to rid yourself of that, any thought of losing. What's going through your head? I mean, like 8 of those events, one of those your blocks slip out. Like how are you able to stay composed throughout that entire time frame?
Well, you quickly have to tell yourself your journey doesn't end here. And for a second, when they quickly, like it wasn't immediate, right? Like they let them run for a little bit. And
Yeah.
so it seemed longer than it was, because, I'm slow. It felt like I'm falling in slow motion. And then I'm like looking up, like watching everybody else go. And I'm like, oh my God, it's over.
Mm-hmm.
um, but then they call the gun back and everyone comes back, and it's like, okay, for a second, you thought your championships were over and your 200-meter journey ended in a blaze of failure. But you got a second chance, and you look back in the moment and think about all the work you put in to get to this moment, and not just this season, but like the seasons leading up to it. And you're like, okay, you've been putting in so much work. You cannot let this small mishap, this inconvenience, hold you back from your dreams. And so I said, okay, we'll just qualify. We don't have that hard of a heat. Just do what you got to do to be in the top 2 to get that automatic spot, and then we'll calibrate and gather myself and get ready for the next round. And that's exactly what I did. I just made sure that I was in position, and then, did what I had to do to be top 2.
It's what was it, 0.003 of a second, something ridiculous. I loved your TikTok on it. It was legit. I think it popped up.
Yeah. So the next round in the semifinals, it's like, all right, I just got to get to the finals. And yeah, I qualified by the skin of my teeth, which was very fortunate for me. I didn't realize it was that close, but these things happen and people bring their A game and shock you sometimes. So you got to be ready for anything.
Did growing up in Toronto teach you to be ready for everything and anything?
I think so, because, Toronto's a huge city, and there's a lot of talent in Toronto. And if you want to stand out, then you're going to have to be different than the rest and do more than what everyone else is doing. So you have to be prepared for someone coming to take your spot, or somebody, taking an opportunity away from you, and be ready at all times to seize your moment when it comes. Right. So like, I played all kinds of sports that we alluded to earlier. And I saw different athletes come and go with huge amounts of talent, but they didn't seize their moments. And so they didn't get to reach the highs that they should have, because there's so much other opportunities being taken away by other athletes. And I think I just learned to stay on my toes, because I know at any moment someone can pop up from nowhere, and now all of a sudden they're in your lane. And literally, like, when we're on the professional circuit vying for lanes overseas and where all the money is at, people are coming for your lanes. There's only 8 or 9 out there. So you have to be one of those best guys consistently, year in and year out, if you want to get those lanes and have those opportunities. And growing up in Toronto, I think really instilled that in me, that anybody can come and take your spot at any moment. So you have to be ready and continually prove yourself year in and year out.
Yeah, and the Raptors did that in 2019. I see you're a fan. What do you think of the upcoming season? What do you think of our boy Scotty Barnes?
I like it. I like it, honestly. And when they were talking about KD coming to the Raptors, at first I was like, yeah, get him. It's going to be Kawhi part 2. But then I was looking at what they're asking for, and I'm like, okay, no, this doesn't make any sense, because with Kawhi, he was coming in hurt. So he was kind of an unknown commodity. So we didn't have to like completely gut the team. We got rid of DeRozan, which was unfortunate, but at the end of the day, we did what we had to do to get the championship. But now with giving up Scotty, and they're wanting other pieces, and like, I think Anoanubi and draft picks and stuff, it's like, no. Like, first of all, KD always gets hurt, so we don't know what we're getting. B, we don't know if he's going to actually stay. Like, he's under contract, but who knows if he actually stays or demands another trade. So it's just like, all right, let's keep this core. We had a solid year last year. People got hurt, but we're only going to get better. I think I like this team, and I think we're one piece away from really being a contender out east, and going for that championship. And I trust in Masai. I feel like he's going to pull something out of his hat, and we'll be right back there competing for championships.
Yeah, I think the combo of Masai Ujiri and Nick Nurse is a pretty deadly duo, and one that's going to be tough to compete with no matter what group of players they have on the roster. I'm curious what it was like going 2016 in Rio, 2021 in Tokyo, the differences, anything in particular that stood out for you, and I guess even in 2012, but like particular changes or any favorite moments for you. I know one point was the fact that you guys actually never get to watch the opening ceremonies because you're always in a different city prior to competition, but like anything stand out and, fun stories that came from it, anything in particular?
So 2012, first Olympics, there was a time when I was in the games room, and this is fresh after the gold medal game for USA basketball when they played Spain and they won. So I'm in the games room playing track and field on the video game machine. I think it was Xbox or something. And in walks in the entire US men's team, the basketball team. So I'm talking Kobe, I'm talking LeBron, I'm talking Dwight Howard, I'm talking Carmelo, Dwayne Wade, Tyson Chandler, all of them. They just walk in, Chris Paul, all of them walk in. I was like, oh my God, like these are guys that I'm looking up to, had posters on my wall and stuff. And so like, I'm like, man, I got to get LeBron's interview or autograph, because he was my favorite athlete. He still is the athlete he's been like my favorite athlete since like 2003. So
Okay.
I know, them being in the village, everybody wants their autograph and pictures and stuff. So I know they're sick of it, and I can empathize with that, but I'm like, I don't care. This is the only time I'm thinking like, this is the only time I'll have to see them up close, and this is my opportunity. So I walk up to LeBron and I ask for an autograph, and he was like, yeah, I got you later. Let me just finish this pool game, because they were playing pool. So I'm like, yeah, cool. So I go out over the side and I'm playing the game and I'm just watching. I'm like, okay, they done yet? They done yet? And then as soon as they finish, he walks out the other way. I'm like, oh my God, I just lost my chance to get an autograph. So then Kobe's still there. So I'm like, okay, I'll just get Kobe. So I go over to Kobe and I was like, I don't know if I messed up my words or if he just didn't understand me, if I was like kind of stumbling over it, but I said, hey, Kobe, can I get a picture or something like that? And he looked at me and he said, what? And then like his agent or somebody came over and like, sorry, they're just keeping it low key. They're not trying to do any pictures or autographs right now. So I got shut down. I was like, man, this sucks. But I was still happy because, I at least got to speak to them and I was in the same room, which, I don't know. Looking back on it, it's like, damn, like I probably should have got their picture or autograph. It like fought a little bit harder to get it, but it was just cool to be in the same room.
Hey, that'll come. It'll come. It'll come, man. I bet. I guarantee you. I guarantee you. You keep putting up the numbers the way you have. You keep doing the things you've been doing. No doubt. I mean, yeah.
At this point, I'm not even pressed to get it anymore. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm an elite athlete on my own, right? So it's not like I'm, you know, pressed to come to ask another athlete like, hey man, I need to get a picture, and it'd be cool. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
say like it's not, but I'm not. It's not like I was when I was 10 years ago when I was 20.
Yeah.
But big difference between 2012 to 2016 to 2021. Obviously, 2021 we had no fans in the stands, so completely different experience. Had to wear masks, had to do tests every day. So that one, honestly, it didn't really even feel like an Olympics. Like we were in lockdown, we couldn't really experience the village like we wanted to. We couldn't leave the village. It wasn't. I mean, it was still fun because I was still with my guys, and we shared a quad with the relay team. So it's always fun being with them and laughs and experiences doing that. But in terms of the overall experience, it was nothing like 2012 or 2016. So comparing and contrasting 2016 Rio to London 2012, London was far superior in terms of like logistics and infrastructure. Like I feel like Rio was kind of rushed and like they didn't finish everything. I had a room in Rio and my room flooded because we had air conditioning units, like portable ones, and you had to like fill it with water, and like if you ran it for too long, the water started to leak and stuff. So like they had to give me a bucket, and it was just a mess. It was like, man, what kind of janky room is this? But yeah, I don't know. It just didn't. Also, I have a bad taste in my mouth from Rio, from how I performed in the 100 and 200. So even though we came in with the bronze, I still was like, Rio was, I was happy to finish ninth in London. I'm like, yeah, I PR'd and I wasn't expected to do anything. So I always look back at London like, yeah, I loved it. And then, Rio was kind of like, meh, I got a medal, but it is what it is.
the like the big change for me is the fact that you've been able to consistently put in the work. I know you had a moment with Coach Dennis Mitchell that was pretty pivotal, where he basically gave you an ultimatum that said, hey, you're either in this for the long haul competing or not. And I'd love for you to maybe clarify on exactly how the conversation went. But, what's come from that since?
It was really just getting on the same page. It was after Rio, I was kind of nervous because, you have pressures on you from your sponsors that want to see you perform. And there's clauses that, penalize you if you don't perform up to certain standards. And I wasn't meeting it. So I was, kind of stressed out with that and worrying about my future. And after 2017, I felt like that was my best opportunity to finally make an individual final at the World Championships. But I get disqualified in the first round by stepping on the line, so even though I win my heat, I'm done for the championships. And I was just really frustrated. I didn't think I was going to, one of my clauses had to be ranked in the top 10 in the world, and according to Track and Field News. And I didn't think I was going to do that because I got disqualified. But I made the Diamond League finals and clawed my way to my first top 10. I was number 10 in the 200. So I was like, oh yes. And that was my first sign of like positivity, but they don't release the rankings until January. Right. So the entire time I'm thinking I'm not going to make it, I'm going to get penalized for not being top 10. And so I was thinking about leaving and going to a different camp. I was going to go to Altus in Arizona in 2017. But then I had a conversation with my coach and my sponsor and my agent. And I was like, all right, let's have 1 year where we're like on the same page. You listen completely to everything that I say and apply yourself. And I promise you'll yield the same results. So you'll yield the results that you want to see. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to completely buy in, do everything you say. And we got on that same wavelength. And I ran my first sub 20 that year. And, I went to Diamond Leagues. I was finishing top 3, like every meet, and I had like my breakthrough that year. I won a silver at Commonwealth. won a silver at NACAX, and we won the 4x1. And so I had a really good year. And that was my first Canadian double where I won the 1 and 2. And I've actually won the 1 and 2 every year since 2018. But yeah, that was kind of like the turning point where I was like, all right, you got to either buy in completely or just move on and go to a different camp and try somewhere else. And, we haven't looked back since. Like, my relationship with my coach is completely different. It's grown so much. He looks at me as a leader on the team and somebody he can rely on, and he doesn't have to worry about what I'm going to do when I go out there on game day, because, I'm going to pretty much execute exactly what he's saying. And I still make mistakes here and there, but they're not so pivotal like they used to be in the past.
Yeah. Yeah. We're grateful you stuck around and stayed here, because we have some incredible Canadians here that are putting up some incredible numbers. That team of yourself, Jerome Blake, Brendan Rodney, and Andre Degrasse put up 37 seconds, 4x100. You've got, to your point, a couple doubles where you've won the 100 and 200 meter Canadian national champs. Can you explain what your favorite event is? Is it the 100? Is it the 200?
Oh man, I used to say it was the 100 because it's the most glamorous one, like the one that everyone pays attention to and makes the most money because everyone loves the 100. It's the blue ribbon event. Everyone loves to win the 100 meters. And I grew up running the 100, like when I was at World Youth in 2009, my first medal was in the 100. So I was the 100-meter guy. But I've grown to love the 200, and I kind of get typecasted on the circuit as a 200-meter guy. So like they always want to give me lanes in the 200, and it's a little bit more difficult for me to run the 100 because they're like, "Yeah, you can run the 1, but how about you run the 2 here?" And so like they always want me to run that, and I've learned to love it. Coming off the curve, there's nothing like it, like transitioning off the curve and carrying your speed down the straightaway. It's I love it. So I'm gonna go. Whew, it's like choosing between two kids, man. I love them both, but we'll say 100 still for now, just because.
Okay.
Yeah, just because of the notoriety.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm gonna say 100 with a 200 close second.
Okay. And have you always been a Nike guy?
Yeah, always. There's a little bit of time where I love Fila's, like the high top shoes, but for the most part, I've always worn Nike. I wore Nike spikes in high school. I wore Nike all throughout college because USC is a Nike sponsored school, and then of course I signed with Nike, so I've been with Nike ever since. But yeah, I love Jordan, and so being with the Nike, I also get to wear Jordan, which I love. Um, so I was a sneakerhead growing up, and I'm still kind of a sneakerhead, not like I once was, but being able to get all the shoes that I have now, Nike shoes that I once, when I was a little kid, was dreaming about and wished one day I would have. I have a lot of them in my collection now. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Do you have a favorite sneaker?
I love ones.
Yeah.
So growing up, I love ones. That's my favorite shoe of all time. But I also like the 11s. That's probably number 2.
Okay.
So I might say the Space Jam is my favorite shoe, or the bread ones.
Mm. Okay. Okay. All right. Couple more questions because I know you're busy, but I appreciate your time. I wanted to see how it felt having the wall put up in Distillery District in your hometown during the Olympic Games, what that meant to be able to have your family come around, take pictures, friends.
Yeah, man, that was awesome. Shout out to Canadian Tire once again for doing that wall. It was really cool for my family to be able to experience that and go there. And even though they couldn't come to Tokyo to watch the games, they went to my first 2 Olympics in Tokyo and London. But of course, there's no spectators in Tokyo, so they couldn't come. But at least there was somewhere where they felt like they could be a part of it, and they got to go on TV, get interviewed, and give them a little exposure, which is always cool and nice for them. Get to feel like how I get to feel sometimes. But yeah, it was an honor, honestly, and I didn't know they were going to do that until they told me right before I left for Tokyo. So I was like, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. And you brought it up earlier in the show, but I wanted to touch on what it was like competing against Usain Bolt, shaking his hand. The guy's the legend in your sport, puts up arguably one of the best Olympic careers ever. Like, run me through the emotions, what it was like going up against that guy.
Oh man. So when I was watching the 100-meter final, in uh I was in the stadium for it, right? So I watched him come across, and I'm still a fan at that point because I hadn't run to that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I still haven't got my feet wet at the senior level. I'm still thinking like I'm watching the greats, the older guys run on TV. And it's like, wow, this guy just ran 9:63. That's insane. And then it hit me when I got back to the room. It's like, okay, the 200 is coming up and you're in it. And now those guys that you just watched out there, that's gonna be you. It's like, oh my God. So I run the first round and I tie my personal best. And I'm like, okay. I was nervous, got the nerves out, and now I feel comfortable. Like, now you got the first one out the way. I'm ready to do the second one. And I remember I got my clothes back from the car room and I'm walking back to the warm up area to go back to the bus to go back to the village. And on the way back, I see Usain. And I'm like, oh my God, this is my moment. I got to talk to him. So I run up to him. I'm like, yo, I'm like, I don't even know what to say to him. I'm like, Usain. He's like, what's up? And I'm like, great race yesterday. Cause that's the only thing I could think. He's like, oh, thanks, man. Thanks, man. And I was like, cool. Like, I got to talk to Usain. I'm going to tell my friends I got to talk to Usain. And then it turns out that they put out the lane draws for the semifinals and I'm racing him. So I'm like, it went from like thinking I had to have that story of that little interaction with him to actually, no, your story is going to be, you're going to race this guy. So I was like, oh my God. So I'm out in lane 9. He's in like 6, I think. And I remember running off the bend and I just see this big giant figure go right past me. It's like, oh my God. It felt like he was like 6'7" or something like that. And his stride just was so long. And I could literally see him like shutting down from behind and like not even trying because it's the semifinals, he's like conserving energy. And meanwhile, I'm like, ah. And I run a big personal best. So like I perform well, but I remember getting like kind of close to him. I only lost by like, he ran, I think 20.2 and I ran 20.4. So I wasn't like, there wasn't daylight between us. Like, he beat me by a lot, but like, it wasn't like a blowout. And so I was like, wow, I held my own against Usain. And so the last thing was when I'm about to go through the media, I'm still on the track looking at my time and I see it pop up. I'm like, oh, I did good. And he's about to walk by me. And so I'm like, okay, should I shake his hand? Should I shake his hand? I'm like, just do it. So I put it out and he dapped me up and I'm like, yes. And then I get the picture of it. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna frame that. I'm 20 years old. So like all these things are running through my head. Like I'm still a kind of a fan at that point. But at the same time, I'm there to compete. And so I did well, but I also got to race the greatest of all time. So definitely a cool moment.
Yeah, what a memory to have. You finished that at 20 years old, and then you head back to USC. How is your nutrition and training, and like more so nutrition? This is something I want to dive deeper in on these episodes specifically because I think athletes can gain a lot of value from learning the nutritional aspect of and how it can assist in performance. Anything particular you do with your diet? Anything that you're eliminating or adding in to make sure that you get enough of what you're needing?
Yeah, a big one is hydration. Being in Florida, training in the hot heat, you sweat a lot out here and you lose a lot of electrolytes. So you definitely need to replace them. So I like to salt my food and make sure that I'm getting as much electrolytes in my body as I can. Making sure that, I used to just drink one bottle of electrolytes, like a Powerade or something like that. But I talked to my nutritionist and that was far not enough. So I like to drink Gatorlights with like the salt packets, put that in my drinks. I have Noon tablets, so I put those in my drinks. Drink a lot of water, but also electrolytes because at that point it's really important. I make sure I always have a snack post running and post training. Some type of carb like a bar or nuts or bananas, something like that that'll help replenish. I have like a recovery protein powder. So sometimes I'll do just the whey protein or I'll do like the complete protein that has carbs in it itself if I don't have enough snacks on me. And then, I'm always trying to get more carbs for dinner, like, especially if I have a big like training day the next day, like a long speed endurance day. Like today I had 180, 80, 80. So I know I like fast speed endurance type workout. I'm definitely trying to carb up before that. So eating like brown rice, quinoa, sweet potatoes, pasta, something like that. One of those is really good to get in you. Of course, you always want your protein. So I'm pretty much solid with chicken and fish. That's like pretty much the only meats I really eat. Sometimes I'll eat, beef here and there just to mix it up, or a steak. But for the most part, chicken and fish is like my go-to. And then I'll throw in a vegetable here and there. Spinach is always good. Asparagus, broccoli, those are always great. But of course, you have your vitamins and your supplements. But those are meant to assist and not carry the load. So like, you still want to get in your foods because that's the biggest source that your body takes in. But then I'll add in like, a multivitamin. I'll add in some magnesium. I'll add in my super greens with my oatmeal in the morning. Like, I'll mix in a powder of that and some protein. So I start the day off. I'll have it's like a superfood oatmeal. So it's got some protein packed into it to fuel me throughout the day. And then like recovery things like cherry tart juice is a good after meats, helps you sleep better. There's a whole bunch of things that like I could get into and just ramble off, but that's pretty much covering the basics. And if you pay attention to that, you're setting yourself really well as an athlete.
Yeah, I tart sweet cherry juice. I haven't heard of that one. I might have to give it a go. A little recovery, help to sleep. I like it. Yo, Aaron Brown, I can't thank you enough for coming on the Athletes Podcast. It means the world to us to be able to feature a world champ today. Congratulations. That was an incredible race you guys ran. The way we wrap up every episode on the Athletes Podcast is we ask our guests what their biggest piece of advice would be to the next generation of athletes. As the wily vet that you are now and all of the experience that you have, I'd love for you to share your piece of advice.
Sure, man. Honestly, I think what separates people who make it in the sport and don't, especially in track and field, is resilience and being able to get knocked down but get back up. A lot of people go through, if you make it to this level, you've had some level of success to get to the pro level. So going through the ranks and getting to that point where you're a professional now, you're going to have a huge level of success and not really be used to adversity. And some people experience it for a little bit, but a lot of people have like this wave of success all the way up to the pros. And then once they get there, then they start to experience their adversity. They don't know how to handle themselves. So at that point, they lose confidence. They start doubting themselves. They stop doing the things that they did to get them there. They try to change things up. They stop listening to people that help them on their path. And then it's just, you start to not recognize yourself as an athlete. But if you have that resilience that say, okay, I'm going to experience the lows, and that's normal. That's in every athlete's journey. We all experience adversity, but you can weather the storm. And if you just stay consistent, stay solid, stay dedicated, continue to reevaluate and reflect on yourself as an athlete and learn where you can improve, over time, you're going to weather the storm and bounce back and come out on the other end as a better athlete for it. So now when you get met with adversity in the future, you're battle tested and you're not easily wavering at the sign of something going wrong. And you need that. That's the most key thing. Like every top athlete will have that. And I'm sure they will tell you the same thing, where it's like they got knocked down, but they learned how to get back up. And now when something knocks them down again in the future, they're not fazed by it. They just get right back up and handle business like a professional. And that's the key. And a lot of people miss that. They always think it's like, what's the secret to get me to the top? How do I get there? And they're just trying to get there so fast. And once they get there, they think it's just going to last. And when it doesn't, they're spooked. And they're like, what do I do now? I don't know what to do. And they fall off and fizzle out. But the ones that have lasting power and stay and build those legacies of long success, it's because they figured out how to weather the storm and be resilient and overcome adversity.
Wise words. Seek out adversity, learn how to get back out. Aaron Brown, thank you so much for coming on, being on the 135th episode of the Athletes Podcast. Can't thank you enough. Really appreciate it. Where can people find you on social media so they can keep up and stay fired up, learning to and listening to all your tips?
Yeah, man. Shout out to you. Thank you for having me on the podcast. If you want to follow me, Kingsley SC, that's KINGSLEYSC. That's my TikTok. That's my Instagram. Aaron Kingsley Brown on YouTube, Kingsley SC on Twitter, and I'm also vaguely on Facebook, but not really. Follow me on the first four. those are the ones I'm active on.
Love it. And hey, are we going to see you in 2024 in Paris?
That's the plan, man. If everything goes according to plan, I will be there. Trying to get that gold and complete the set. I have an Olympic silver, I have Olympic bronze. We need that Olympic gold. So definitely trying to go to Paris 2024.
There we go. Hey, that's what we're looking for. We look forward to watching you get that gold in 2024. Aaron Brown, thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate your time.
Appreciate it. Thanks.